Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, James is standing at a crossroads he never wanted to face. He's been back in Vietnam for a week, cooking dinner for Nai, playing the perfect uncle, hiding in the shadows of the life he's supposed to be living. But tonight, everything unravels. Diep has had enough. 3 postponed weddings, 3 broken promises. 3 times James chose urgent overseas work over the woman who's been waiting for him. Tonight, she's not asking for explanations anymore. She's asking him to leave. Stay until the end, because this confrontation is raw, heartbreaking, and brutally honest. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. You know that sound? That blue flame hissing under a wok? Yeah, that's where we start. The air's thick with the smell of scallions hitting hot oil. And James is there, sleeves rolled up, sweat beading on his temples, flipping fried rice like his life depends on it. It's one of those quiet, ordinary moments that feel sacred, you know? Then Nai comes padding in. She's got this little clay figure clutched in both hands, still damp, still soft. "I made a chubby Uncle James," she announces, holding it up with pure pride. James sets the pan down and takes the gift. It's clumsy, lumpy, impossibly warm from her tiny hands. The statue's round, eyes squinted shut, with this goofy grin. It looks exactly like him. "I missed Uncle so much I cried," Nai says, "so I made this." Something breaks inside James. He presses the clay figure to his chest. His nose stings. His throat tightens. "Uncle James loves Nai very much," he whispers. But then his phone starts vibrating, relentless. The screen lights up. Urgent. Overseas. James looks at Nai's smile, then at the phone. His eyes darken like a sky before a storm. You can see the weight settling on his shoulders, the choice he's being forced to make. Again. Cut to dinner. Small table, 3 chipped bowls. Nai picks out a burnt piece of egg for James, rice stuck to her cheek. "Uncle cooks like a 5-star chef," she says, completely serious. James smiles, gentle and tired, ruffling her hair. The neon light outside flickers, but inside it's warm. It's home. Later, Nai dozes off on the sofa, mumbling, "Uncle, don't go." James carefully lifts her and carries her to bed. He tucks her in, fingers trembling as he strokes her hair. In his pocket, that clay statue presses against his chest like a second heartbeat. Then the metal gate creaks. Diep's home. She steps inside, clothes dusted with road dirt, faint scent of ripe pomelo clinging to her. James silently reheats rice and places it before her. The silence is heavy, lead heavy. Diep stares into his eyes. "You've been back in Vietnam for a week, haven't you?" James looks down. A tear rolls down Diep's cheek. "Do you even still consider us family that you hide it?" Then it all comes pouring out. "We postponed the wedding 3 times, James. 3 times. And every single time, it's the same excuse. Overseas business trip, urgent work, personal reasons." James closes his eyes. April. That was the first date. Diep had picked out her dress. A simple white ao dye with delicate embroidery. Her mother had started the guest list. Then the call came. He'd told her 1 month. That was 8 months ago. The second time, Diep continues, July. My parents booked the restaurant. The invitations were printed, your name and mine, in gold letters. 3 days before the wedding, you disappeared. No call, no text, just gone. James remembers sitting in a safe house halfway across the world, staring at his phone, not knowing what to say. And October? Diep's voice cracks. We kept it simple, just close family. And you missed it. You were in Vietnam, James. Same country. Still couldn't make it. The words hang heavy. James wants to explain that it wasn't a choice, it was orders. That lives depended on him. But how do you explain that to someone whose life is falling apart because of your secrets? I'm sorry, James says, knowing how pathetic it sounds. Diep laughs bitterly. You're always sorry. But sorry doesn't give me back the deposits we lost. Sorry doesn't explain to my parents why their daughter can't get married. Sorry doesn't fix the fact that I don't even know who I'm marrying anymore. She wipes her tears. The worst part? It's not the cancellations. It's that you hide from us when you're home. A whole week and you didn't tell me. You came to see Nye, cooked dinner, played perfect uncle, but couldn't call your fiancé. The word fiancé sounds strange now, like a title that doesn't fit. How many times have you used business trip as an excuse? Diep asks. How many promises have you broken? James falls to his knees, clutching her shirt. Give me a little more time. Please. We'll reschedule. Don't. Diep pushes his hand away, voice ice cold. Don't make promises you can't keep. She takes a shaky breath. I loved you, James. I still do. But I can't keep living like this. Every time you leave without explanation, every cancellation without a real reason, it's like you're choosing something else over us, over me. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Diep's voice breaks. Because I'm engaged to a ghost, someone who appears and disappears without warning, who won't tell me where he goes or when he'll be back. James wants to tell her everything. About the missions, the danger, the reasons he can't talk. But the words stick, bound by oaths and secrets. Go home, Diep whispers. It's late. Maybe we both need to figure out what we really want. She turns to the wall, shoulders shaking. James stands there, the clay statue pressed against his chest. A child's love preserved in fragile clay, while the love of the woman he was supposed to marry crumbles. He picks up his bag and walks to the door. Each step feels wrong. The door closes with a soft click, not a slam. That's worse. A slam would mean there's still something to fight for. But this quiet closing? This is resignation. This is goodbye. James stands outside the house, bag in hand, staring at the closed door, like it might open again. Like Diep might change her mind. But the house stays dark, silent except for the hum of mosquitoes and distant traffic. He pulls out his phone, that same phone that's ruined everything, and stares at the screen. Urgent, overseas, still flashing. He could ignore it. He could turn around, knock on that door, and choose differently this time. But he doesn't. His motorbike sits at the curb, faithful as always. James throws his leg over, kicks the engine to life. The sound cuts through the quiet neighborhood like a wound. He doesn't look back. If he looks back, he won't leave. And leaving is what he does best, isn't it? The roads are empty at this hour. Street lights cast long shadows. and James weaves through them like a ghost. The clay statue digs into his ribs with every bump. He should throw it away. It's just making everything worse, this physical reminder of what he's leaving behind. But he can't. It's all he has left. 20 minutes later, he's at a nondescript apartment building in the old quarter. Peeling paint, rusted balconies, the kind of place nobody notices. Perfect for people who need to disappear. James climbs 3 flights of stairs, each step heavier than the last. 3rd floor, apartment 304. He knocks. 3 short, 1 long. A code. The door opens. No greeting. Just a curt nod from a man in his 50s, graying hair, eyes that have seen too much. "You're late," the man says in English. "I know," James replies, stepping inside. The apartment is sparse. Tactical gear on the table, maps spread across the floor, radio equipment humming in the corner. This is the other life, the one Diep can never know about. Indonesia situation's escalated, the man continues, pointing at a satellite image. Extraction window is closing. We leave in 4 hours. 4 hours. James looks at his watch. It's almost midnight. By sunrise, he'll be on a plane to God knows where, doing God knows what, for reasons he can't explain to the people he loves. "You good?" the man asks, studying James's face. "Yeah," James lies. "I'm good." But he's not good. He pulls out the clay statue, sets it on the table next to the tactical maps. It looks absurd there. This innocent, childish thing surrounded by weapons and coordinates. 2 worlds that should never touch. "What's that?" the man asks. "Nothing," James says. "Just nothing." The man doesn't push. In this line of work, everyone's got their ghosts. James tries to sleep but can't. He lies on the bare mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying Diep's words. "I'm engaged to a ghost." She's right. That's exactly what he is. A ghost who shows up at dinner, tucks children into bed, and then vanishes before morning. A ghost who makes promises he can't keep, sets wedding dates he'll never make. 3 postponed weddings, each one a small death. Each cancellation, another piece of Diep's trust crumbling away. He remembers the first time. April. He'd called her from a secure line in Jakarta, voice flat, professional. "I can't make it. Work emergency." Diep had cried. He'd heard it in her voice, even though she tried to hide it. "Okay," she'd said. "We'll reschedule. It's fine." But it wasn't fine. July was worse. He'd been in Bangkok that time, knee-deep in something he still can't talk about. The wedding was in 3 days. He knew he wouldn't make it, but he waited until the last possible moment to call. Cowardice disguised as hope. When he finally did call, Diep didn't cry. She just went quiet. That silence was worse than tears. In October he'd been in Vietnam. Same country. Same city even. But the operation ran long. Complications piled up. And by the time he extracted, the day had passed. He'd gone to see Nai instead of Diep. Because facing a child's unconditional love was easier than facing a woman's justified anger. His phone buzzes, a message from an unknown number. All assets accounted for. Wheels up 0400. James sits up, runs his hands through his hair. He thinks about texting Diep, saying, "What? Sorry again?" That word's lost all meaning between them. Promising it'll be different next time? They both know it won't. He picks up the clay statue instead. Nai's fingerprints are still visible in the clay, little swirls and ridges. I missed Uncle so much I cried. How many more times will she cry? How many more times will he disappear, leaving her to wonder if he's ever coming back? And Diep. God, Diep. She deserves so much better than this. She deserves someone who shows up, someone who keeps promises, someone whose love isn't constantly at war with duty. James thinks about his parents. They'd done this dance too. His father always gone, his mother always waiting. He'd sworn he'd never become his father. Yet here he is, repeating the same patterns, inflicting the same wounds. The man from earlier walks in, 2 cups of instant coffee. "You sure you're good for this?" he asks, handing one to James. "Does it matter?" James asks back. "Not really, but I'm asking anyway." James takes a sip. Bitter. Lukewarm. Perfect metaphor for his life. "I proposed to her 2 years ago," he says suddenly. "Told her I wanted to build a life together, have kids, grow old. The whole thing." The man sits down, says nothing. Sometimes silence is the best response. 3 weeks after I proposed, I got called away. First of many. She stuck with me through all of it. Every disappearance, every vague excuse, every broken promise. She kept believing I'd come back, that we'd get our chance. "And now?" the man asks. "Now I think she's done believing." The man nods slowly. "This life," he says, "it doesn't leave room for much else. You know that. We all know that." "Then why do we keep pretending it does?" James asks. No answer. Because there isn't one. At 3:30 a.m., James packs his gear. Tactical vest, encrypted phone, documents under a false name. He leaves the clay statue on the table. Taking it feels wrong, like dragging Nye into the darkness with him. But leaving it feels like abandoning her. He compromises, wraps it carefully in a cloth, tucks it in his bag. A talisman, a reminder of what he's supposed to be protecting. They drive to the airport in silence. Private terminal, unmarked plane. James has done this dozens of times, but tonight it feels different, heavier, like crossing a threshold he can't uncross. As the plane lifts off, Hanoi's lights spreading below like scattered stars, James realizes something. Diep was wrong about one thing. She said he was choosing duty over love. But the truth is worse than that. He's not choosing at all. He's been trapped in this pattern so long, he doesn't know how to break it. The wedding cancellations, the disappearances, the secrets, they're not choices. They're inevitabilities. And that's what makes it so hopeless. Somewhere down there, Diep is probably lying awake, staring at her own ceiling, wondering if she made the right call. And Nye, still clutching her blanket, dreaming of an uncle who promises to stay, but always leaves. James closes his eyes. The plane climbs higher, carrying him away from the only home he's ever wanted, toward missions he can't discuss, for reasons that seem less clear with every passing year. His hand finds the clay statue in his bag, still warm somehow, still holding the shape of a child's love. "Uncle, don't go," Nye had whispered in her sleep. But he did. He always does. And that's the tragedy of it all. Not that he leaves, but that he keeps coming back, giving them hope when he should just let them go. Maybe the kindest thing would be to disappear completely. Let Diep find someone who shows up. Let Nye forget about the uncle who makes promises he can't keep. But James knows he won't do that either. He'll keep coming back. Keep breaking hearts. Keep choosing duty over love while pretending there's still a choice to make. The plane levels off. 6 hours to Jakarta. Then wherever the mission takes him, days, maybe weeks before he can return. And when he does, another dinner with Nye. Another painful conversation with Diep. Another cycle of hope and disappointment.